What's going on, everybody? We are back with some more predictions for the RLCS. And let's go over what happened in week number 2 first, and then we'll move on to week number 3, and we'll decide what we're going to pick. There's a couple games where I'm kind of 50-50 on. But if we go back to week 2, or first we'll talk about the eSports Shop rules. So, eSports Shop is out, if you guys don't know, and we'll talk about this again really, really quickly. Every time I predict a team to lose, and they win, I buy a piece of their gear. Now, there's been a couple of extras like Barcelona and PSG, I technically owe a piece to. I don't know if they'll ever be in the eSports Shop, so we'll see about that. But if they don't get in by the end of the season, I'll probably just wash those away, and then we'll continue for the next season and so on and so forth. But this past week, we went 9-1 in predictions, as we see here with our predictions. And so the only one we would have lost out on was the PSG one. But that, like they don't have any eSports items. So we should be relatively safe. So we picked up a Splice piece already. We're waiting on a Mouse Sports piece to enter the shop. I'm probably not going to buy any banners. I'm not that interested in the player banners. I'd rather have stuff for my car. So I'm looking at decals and wheels. And the Splice decal was really sexy, so I got that. Now I went for Mouse Sports stuff. I'll probably want to pick up some wheels, but we'll see what we get. But let's go back into it. So week number 2, we're looking on Wikipedia, in case you didn't know. I think the only thing that was surprising to me was maybe the 3-2 G2 Rogue. I think that's the most surprising aspect of this, of how close the series was. As we can see the games here, if you guys can see that well, I might zoom in a little bit for you, actually. Might help. Let me just move some stuff around here real quick. Just go like this and go like this. Make it a little bit easier to read. Okay, so the G2 Rogue series, relatively close. One thing that I have noticed so far with Rogue is every time they have a chance to win a series, they've literally not scored a goal since they had a chance to win a series yet. If we go back to the EG series, when they go up 2-1, they didn't score a goal in game 4 or 5. And then the same thing here. It's just some small interesting tidbit. Once they tied up the series after a 5-0 win, they did not score a single goal. So they've never had a chance on match point to be leading in a game, and they haven't scored a goal. So we'll see if that'll continue. Rogues is kind of an interesting one because I feel like it's hard to tell where they're at. It's hard to tell comparison-wise where they're at compared to some other teams like Splice and Ghost, who have only played Cloud9 and NRG. And it seems like Cloud9 and NRG are just kind of wiping the floor with everyone. But it could be because they're playing Splice and Ghost. So it's kind of difficult to tell right now. But Rogue played pretty decent. I thought Crow played really well again. I think Wonder and AJ really stepped up. G2 just came away with the win, the narrow win. I feel like Chicago's probably their best player right now. Rizzo's been relatively weak, and I expect him to pick it up a little bit as the season goes on, and that'll make G2 even better. I think JNFs has been pretty decent. But 3-2, little surprising, but G2 does pull out the victory. Moving on to the Cloud9 Go series. We expected Cloud9 to probably take it to them, and they did relatively easy. Only 2 goals scored in the series for Ghost. That one's not too surprising there. We'll talk about Ghost and Lethemir and all that in a bit, about his Twitter rants, as we go through these predictions. Space Station versus EG. I expected Space Station to win. I didn't think it would be a 3-0. Space Station also beat them the 2 times they faced in the offseason for a DreamHack. I think it was DreamHack qualifiers. They knocked out EG, and then they also knocked them out at Leipzig itself. Space Station comes away with the win here. Very close games, though, except for the first one. Like, the other 2 overtimes could have went either way. Obviously, the third overtime should have never even happened. It was a miserable play by Corrupted G, and it forces EG to lose that game. But Space Station, definitely their offense is clicking. They got to work a little bit on the defensive side, but their offense is getting there, which I like to see. Energy Splice, this would have been another perfect series. But Splice had 1 team pinch goal, and Energy just kind of dominated the series. That's kind of what we expected. We want to see a little bit more out of Splice and Ghost, but it's hard to tell if that's the Energy or the Cloud9 aspect of that. The other series, G2 versus EG. We expected G2 to win this, especially after EG lost to Space Station in 3-0. And G2 comes away with the win, a little bit more comfortable. Not much in this series versus EG than Rogue, so that's a good sign. But they did wind up going even in goals. It's like EG won 1 game by 3. All the other games were 1-goal games. So G2 still, they haven't kind of pushed away from the rest of the pack, I would say. They're winning very close series. But, like, at this point, they've already played 3 of the teams that are supposed to be in the bottom 5. And probably the two teams that everyone expected to be fighting for that 4 spot, they've beaten them both, right? They beat Space Station and they beat EG. So very good sign for them that they're very likely top 3. Then it just comes down to, can they start getting things clicking? Maybe start with this week versus Ghost, and then they get Splice right after on week number 4 to lead into the Energy match. Like, that's where it's going to be important. Like, right now, G2 doesn't own tiebreakers, and they probably won't now at this point, but there's still some time. But G2 needs to beat Energy or Cloud9 and then hope the other one beats that same team as well so they can get a top 2 spot. Because if it turns into a split 1-1 across the board, right now at least G2 not looking great. As we look at the standings here, we can see G2 is in first, but they're only at +4 game differential. Cloud9 and Energy have played one less match, and they're at +6 and +5. So if they do go to 3-0, they're at least +7 and +6, very likely more. But again, different schedule, so we'll see. This week is the week where we can start comparing teams from NA, like the big 3 versus each other, because like a team like Energy, they're playing EG, they're playing Space Station, 2 teams that G2 had very close series with. We'll see what Energy does against them. And then Cloud9's got EG and Rogue. Again, 2 teams that G2 were relatively close with, so we'll see if they can pull away from G2 after this week. So it wasn't too surprising of a week for NA. I think I went 5-0. I think Jorby also went 5-0. Maybe one other guy from our side. It was mostly the Space Station EG. I think a lot of people were 50-50 on that, and I feel like a lot of people tended towards EG just because of the experience, but it went Space Station's way. So nothing too surprising there. Moving on, we'll do predictions first. So we'll go into that. And here you can see my old predictions for NA if you were looking at that. So that's what those are. Same with the Europe predictions, so don't worry about those too much. But we got them right. We just weren't expecting 3-0s maybe in some cases. I was trying to give more benefit of doubt for some teams, but didn't really work out. So let's get into this week's games. Can you see that on the screen? I think you can. So these games are actually played on my birthday. The NA games on 4/20. So that should be fun. And birthday to watch some good old Rocket League. We got Energy versus Space Station. Now here's the thing. Again, with Energy, like if Ghost and Splice are our bottom 2 teams, it's not necessarily true, but it could be. Then we haven't seen Energy tested yet. This is the first test for Energy. Like I would say, like out of all the games, this is my match of the day, and it's the very first game of the day where we'll see where Space Station lies. They had a very competitive series versus G2. They barely lost it. And like if Energy is going to be tested by anyone from the bottom 5, it's probably Space Station at this point. So it should be really interesting to see how they play. I still think Energy wins this, but I think it'll be maybe somewhat close. At least I'll give them 1 game, and I think it could be 2 for Space Station. But I think Energy will be tested here, and my dog is trying to jump up on the couch, but she can't. Go, Wasp. Go ahead. Go ahead. She always takes forever to jump up. We have Oreo right behind me, as you can see right there. But Waffles is trying to jump up. Let's go, Waffles. Go ahead. Up. All right. Well, while she tries to figure that out, we'll move on. So, 3-1. Oh, I'm sorry, not Space Station. I was talking about them, so I wrote it. NRG. So, next series, Splice versus Rogue. I'm going back and forth on this one. I don't know who to pick yet. So I'm going to leave this as 0-0, and we're going to come back to that game, because that game is throwing me off. I might go Splice. I have Rogue right now in my prediction sheet, but I'm not sure yet. C9 EG, we'll just continue here. I expect C9 to win this, again, somewhat easily, but I think EG has enough firepower to show up something. Like, I think so far, like, EG's been on top of one another a little bit, and honestly, it's mostly Classics and Corrupted G on top of one another. But Drippe, I feel like he's been, like aggressively mediocre, if that's the thing. Like, he's been average, which is fine, but it's like they need some type of firepower coming out from EG. Corrupted G had a terrible series last week, and Classics, I felt like played decent, but they need something better than what they've shown. So we'll see what they can do. They need to bounce back after that 3-0, but it's against Cloud9. It's probably going to be a little difficult. Next up, we got G2 versus Ghost. Now, Ghost, I get it. Their first 2 games are against Cloud9 and Energy, but the whole complaining on Twitter from Lethamyr is never a good look. Like, he says, it doesn't get to me. I just like to retweet, people that are hating on me. It's going to get to you a little bit. Like, that's what it seems like. But Hopefully Leth, like I know Leth is just focusing on the games he has left, but it's like no one cares that Dingtas is 0-3. That's not a reason why that people can't say that Ghost is bad at 0-3. Like, come on now. That's not a good correlation here at all. But like Ghost has played the top 2 teams, and now they get G2. This could be a closer series than we expect, depending on what we get out of G2. But I will go. Why do I keep writing the wrong team here? I keep writing the wrong teams. But I'm gonna go. Excuse me, 3-1 G2, because I think G2's been a little bit inconsistent. And I think they'll at least give up 1 game. But I don't think Ghost is too much of a threat. But they could prove me wrong in that series. Next up, we got Cloud9 versus Rogue. I don't think Rogue stands a chance here. We'll go 3-0 here for C9. I think C9 will just be too fast. And it's been a lot of double commits on Rogue from time to time. So I'm expecting Cloud9 to come out with a pretty big win here over Rogue. And then finally, NRG, EG. EG is going to be already down on their luck from playing earlier. I'm going to go 3-0 here as well for NRG, because one thing NRG doesn't really do is have a lot of mistakes. If they capitalize on mistakes from EG, it should be a relatively easy series. It might be low scoring, though, because NRG might play it a little safe. But I'm going to go 3-0 NRG there as well to keep those 2 teams up really far. Now, like, if my match of the day is Energy Space Station, my match that I'm having the hardest time predicting is Splice versus Rogue. This game is so incredibly important as we look back up in the standings. So, Rogue is at 0-2, and their 2 losses have been to G2, which is not bad. That's fine. And EG. So, the EG one, when comparing for top 6, is probably going to matter a lot. But so far, not too bad of losses. The one great thing for them is they're 0-2, but they're only -2 in game differential. So if they do get this win over Splice, they immediately pass them for game differential. And Rogue's going to own a lot of tiebreakers if they continue to just lose in 5 while winning other series. So very important series for them to not fall 0-3, because then tiebreakers might not matter at the end of the day, because Splice will already have 2 wins. And again, as we talk about, Rogue's only played one of the big 3. You expect them to at least be 0-5 with the other 2 big 3 games, and then they have to win out in their last 2 when they play Ghost and Space Station, but Space Station has been looking pretty good. So Rogue, almost a must-win here, I feel like, because it'd be very difficult to beat the big 3, but who knows? Maybe they'll surprise. And then for Splice, it's a similar thing where they've played the 2 best teams, and then they beat Ghost. If they beat Rogue and start out 2-0 versus those bottom 5 teams, then looking very, very strong to make playoffs. It'll also kind of knock Rogue out, or at least put them really, really low, and they'll have to win out. While Splice, if Rogue wins out versus those bottom teams, that also means those bottom teams drop. Splice could pass them. So 2 wins might be enough. They might need 1 more win, or at least some close series versus the other teams, but it's not terrible for them. So Splice could not lock up a spot, put them in a really good spot to make top 6, and Rogue desperately needs this win, because if they lose, it's going to be rough. So, very important series. Oh, man. This one's tough. I feel like if Splice is not missing the ball, and they play like they play when they don't miss the ball, I guess, is the case, then they might have a better chance, but their offense looked terrible versus NRG. Rogue's at least showed up. You know what? I'm going to stay with Rogue. Like, I was thinking about going Splice, but I'm going to stay with Rogue. But I think it'll be a very close series and very important series across the board. But I will stay with Rogue there. And also, then I can get some sick yellow Splice wheels if I do lose out on that pick. So we'll go Rogue there. It's a tough call, but that's what we'll go with. Moving on to Europe. Let's go over there. The dogs are freaking a little bit because we have cleaners upstairs. All right, so moving on over to Europe. So Europe, let's go over this day. So I was very happy that I went 4-1 on this day. Everyone got PSG dig wrong, but I got everything else right, which is pretty nice. A lot of sweeps again, which is very, very surprising. But let's go over the games. Vitality versus Barcelona. Obviously the clean sweep, which is super impressive. 10 goals to 0. So that looked extremely good. I did a VOD review of that on the stream and is on YouTube as well. And it was mostly Vitality, just extremely patient defense, allowing Barcelona to just smack the ball to him at midfield and just controlling the play. And it was a extremely well done series. PSG versus Dig, we also have this up there as well. PSG, like even if Dig is playing extremely well, I think PSG might have won the series anyway. They were playing that good. 2 games that were close though. They're like games 2 and 3, extremely close games. Like they could have made this a series for sure, but PSG was on point. And we'll see with my picks later that I'm actually liking PSG right now. As long as they can keep that up, they're looking pretty decent. I wouldn't be too worried about Dig after this PSG series. Like sure, it's a bad loss, but I think Dig looked decent, at least in games 2 and 3. There was some mistakes that you don't expect from Dig, but I still think they have chances to beat some of these other teams. But extremely surprising result. TSM over Triple Trouble, that's not surprising at all. TSM wins by basically shutting down Triple Trouble's offense, or lack thereof. My concern with TSM is 2 games went to overtime, and I feel like they just don't have a lot of offense unless there's a mistake by the other team. I'm a little worried about that going into these week's games, so I'm a little worried about TSM. I feel like they're not like going for that first place spot as they are like this week in week number 3 playing Vitality, but I don't think they will be undefeated at that point, and we'll go into that in a little bit. Bricks versus Mouse. This series was fun to watch. It was definitely a fun watch. A lot of offense again. The one game I loved by Mouse was like game 4 where they only gave up 2 shots, which is really, really nice. But Mouse Sports, their offense is still doing pretty well, and they could have won the series. It was like one mistake at the end by Tigre on the defensive end that cost them the series. But the Bricks also at times showed up, and Mystic, when he's popping off, that's the only time I feel like that the Bricks are world championship contenders. The problem is he doesn't always pop off. He popped off in games 1 and 2, or games 1 through 3, I would say. And then kind of slowed down a bit. But they get the win. Much needed win for the Bricks. So very important there. And for standing purposes, because now Bricks, Mouse, and Triple Trouble, they all split their games 1-1 each. So that's very important. Bricks would have a slight advantage there, I believe, over the rest. Because Triple Trouble, they lost to Mouse, 3-1? So I guess Mouse technically has the advantage there. But that's if Dig catches back up. But anyway, we'll continue. It was a good series, all in all, and it shows that Mouse is definitely contenders for a top 6 spot, for sure. They looked not bad. Vitality versus Dig. I think everyone expected Vitality to win this after the first Dig matchup, and I was just happy that I had both Vitality at the start of the day. I think I was the only one out of our people that had that. I'm actually going to check. I should have probably made this full screen, which would have looked nicer. Here's some picks coming in for this week, but we're not sure if those will change. But let's see. Was I the only one to go both Vitality? Yes. Me and Jorby. Jorby's a smart man. He's a smart man. So you guys can't see all of it, but yeah. So there you go. So going back to this, actually I will F11 it, make it a little neater for you guys. So Vitality goes up 3-0. Scrub Killer, that great aerial dribble goal. I think if I had to choose like a player of the week for this, probably would have been Scrub. Like, I think Scrub was the best player on Vitality for today, but it was K-Dot beating his old team, so we gave it to him, which was fun. But pretty good picks for us. We didn't expect all 3-0s. Very, very short day, and now we move into the 6-game schedule. So let's go over to this. PSG, I was impressed with last week. I thought Farah shot incredibly well. I think Fruity was being very aggressive and playing well. And Chaussette was doing the same thing, just playing extremely well. All 3 of them. Clicking. Hopefully they do it again this week. Triple Trouble, the same type of problems where they can start moving the ball up on offense, but they don't really have they have no finish at all. Like Ronicky is still shooting relatively poorly. Tadpole's moving up a little bit more now. He's playing more of that midfield, like, I'm going to redirect this upfield, but then he can't do anything with it after that moment. And that's at least against TSM. We'll see if that changes here. But just no real offensive threat right now. So PSG, I think, will win this series. I'm going to go 3-0. This will be PSG's day. So PSG will show up and dominate Triple Trouble, and they'll be in deep, deep trouble to make top 6. It's going to be very difficult. the Bricks versus Vitality. Vitality is the best team in the world right now, so this one's pretty easy. I'm going to go 3-0 Vitality. I think Vitality could make some historic numbers this season, and they're starting off really, really well. So we're going to keep that going here. We're going to get some sweeps to start the day. Next up, TSM versus Barcelona. Now, obviously, Barcelona looked like crap last week, but I think if TSM is just waiting for Barcelona to make mistakes, there's potential to have counterattacks, but it's also Barcelona. Like, if you give them time, they will make you pay, and I have a feeling that could hurt TSM here in the grand scheme of things. And I think Barcelona wins this series. We'll go 3-2. We'll make it a close series. I guess we should do it the other way. 3-2 Barcelona. But I think TSM is similar to kind of Energy and Cloud9, where they really haven't played anyone. But Energy and Cloud9 look so much more dominant doing it. So TSM has only played Mouse and Triple Trouble, two teams that I still project probably bottom two. Like after week number 1, it seemed like those two were the weaker ones, and that depends if they can come out of their hole or not. But if I had to say, like today, who's going to be bottom two, I think it would still be Triple Trouble and Mouse. And Bricks would be right beside them. Same with Dig as well. But nope, no Ghost blocking. All right, so we're back. So basically the whole gist, sorry, I had to do a little split in the video there. TSM, we're not sure where they land yet. They've had 2 series that were like, somewhat dominant. And at least in games, it was good. But I feel like it'll be a real test this week for them. And I am assuming they fail that test. And I think Barcelona will take the win versus TSM. Moving on to the next one. Dig versus Mouse. Like, this game is juicy, man. This is a juicy game that no one expected to be juicy. Dig absolutely needs to win this game, or they're in deep, deep, deep trouble at this point. And if they beat Mouse, I think they can breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief going into the following week playing Triple Trouble. They could easily wind up being 2-3 at that point and being relatively safe from elimination. They would still probably need some results to go their way, or depending if Mouse or Triple Trouble show up somewhere along the way. But very important series here. Mouse is playing better than I think everyone expected at the start of the season, so this should be a competitive series. I think Dig will figure out some of their issues and will win this series, so I'm going to go to Dig there. And at some point, I have to pick against Dig, but I feel like versus Mouse, I think Mouse is still a little of a glass cannon, and if Dig can counter that glass cannon, which they normally can, then I think they can take the win. But eventually, we'll have to start picking against Dig somewhere along the way. Next up, Bricks versus PSG. I'm liking PSG. I think PSG might be that 4th best team possibly in Europe. Like at this point, it'd be what? Vitality. You have TSM up there, which maybe. Still not I'm not sold on TSM yet. I still need to see them play better teams. But Vitality, TSM, I think Barcelona probably still up there, but we'll see if they can bounce back after that tough loss. And then maybe it's PSG. And maybe if Dig finds their drive and like they can make a run, then there's conversation for them in there. But I think PSG is definitely fighting for that top 4 spot. Like I said at the start of the year, I wasn't too thrilled with the Bricks play, and it showed in week 1. It kind of showed in week 2, even though Speed is back, but they should be getting better and better as Speed gets back into like the scrim practice and all that stuff. But I still just think they rely too much on like inconsistency to kind of shove them forward. Like, sure, when they're on, they're great, but it just doesn't happen that often, I feel like. So I'm going to go PSG here. I think PSG has a chance to really show up today and show why they're one of the better teams in Europe. And I think they will. So PSG, I got a 3-1 here. And then finally, the final game, TSM versus Vitality. I think Vitality is still the best team in Europe. I think TSM, it's going to be an interesting day for TSM, and I wonder what they will show, and I'm excited to see it, but I am banking against them. I'm going to go 3-1 here for Vitality. So these are our picks. They are set in stone, and that'll be the end of this video, guys. This is week 3 predictions. I think I called it week 2 predictions at the start of this whole thing, but week 3 predictions, and it should be really exciting. It's our first 6-game week. All the rest of the weeks are 6 games, so it should be really exciting. But that'll do it for this video. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me what esports items I will be buying this next week. And we'll see you next time. Bye.